Welcome back. Senate Republicans are moving full steam ahead with confirming Kavanaugh in the next couple of days. I'm joined now by South Dakota Republican Senator Mike Rounds. Senator Rounds, welcome back to the show. Why wouldn't he get confirmed at this point? Or does it look like he's going to get... Is there any reason we should assume he doesn't get confirmed?
I think he gets confirmed, and I think he gets confirmed because we've done our due diligence, and the individuals who have taken their time to work their way through, and those who had concerns, I think those concerns have been answered. The FBI has now done a 7th review, not only on him, but on other individuals that they felt compelled to look at. I think they did a total of 10 additional reports. We had a chance to look through them today. There were a group of us that sat in a room and literally went through them page by page. We actually had people read some of them so that we could hear the full context. And then ask questions of one another. This is, as you and I had talked earlier, this is really individuals trying to make the right decision and do the due diligence necessary to be able to justify what they're doing.
Look, a lot of the lawyers for Dr. Ford, the lawyers for Ms. Ramirez have both said, hey, we gave them this list of people they talked to, they didn't talk to. But I'm going to set those aside. There were 2 people that I thought were going to get interviewed that weren't. One is Judge Kavanaugh, and the other is Dr. Ford. Hey, do you understand why some people think, wait a minute, you didn't interview those 2 again? Why?
I think you answered your question. Interview those 2 again?
Well, but the FBI hasn't done it.
Well, actually, they both, Judge Kavanaugh's already gone through an FBI interview.
But not on this.
And to begin with, remember.
But not on this.
Well, no, wait. There isn't on this only. This is a case of where we didn't give them any limitations to who they could go to. We let the FBI, in their professional opinion, decide where they wanted to go.
That's not true. The White House did put some limits on who could be talked to and who didn't. If they wanted, they made it clear they didn't want either. I think their excuse was, well, they were interviewed by the committee.
My understanding is, based upon what I've heard from the Judiciary Committee, our Judiciary Committee did not make any limits on this except those which were publicly discussed with
those who wanted to report. It wasn't your limits to put on it. It was the president's. This came from the White House counsel's office.
I haven't heard a discussion that says you cannot do a...
Let me ask you this. Would you have preferred that the 2 of them had been part of the interview process as well? Do you think it would have made it a little bit more comforting to those that are uncomfortable?
Look, for those individuals who aren't going to vote, it wouldn't have mattered because they're not going to vote for him anyway. And look, let me be honest, there's a partisan move in this thing. Do you understand that?
That I get.
Okay. This is a search and destroy mission.
Okay, but how do we fix... I understand this, and guess what? Every side thinks the other side did it first, and I'm not getting into that tit for tat. I'm going in the... How do you have the American public, a majority of the American public, feel comfortable that Justice Kavanaugh is going to be fair?
Well, let's look at the total number of days. Right now, we're 3 weeks past the average time it takes in which to make an investigation. He's gone through not 6, but now 7 separate FBI investigations.
Background checks.
Background checks. BIs. Background checks. Okay, these are 302s. Along with that, based upon the request of the Senate, remember, the Senate makes the decision as to whether or not we move forward. Individual senators, Republicans who were undecided, said, look, we want more information. That was granted. They said, look, we want a limited one, but we want it done within a week. These were the people that are making the decision. And the Senate's role is to make that decision. The FBI doesn't make the decision. They provide additional data. They were directed to make a review. And if those individuals, those Republicans who made the request are satisfied, then we move forward. As our leader says, Leader McConnell says, look, it's time to vote. It's time to find out whether or not we've done our job.
This could be the first Supreme Court justice we have that basically, they may not get a single vote of a member of the other party. I mean, I think Joe Manchin votes yes on this, but it would only be one. It will be the slimmest margin since Clarence Thomas.
Well, and we don't have a lot to say about that because we have to make up our own mind. And as Senator Schumer said, look, the decisions and the delay, as he called it, were being made by Republicans. So regardless of what happens, he's going to say Republicans made this decision. He's not going to say that Democrats made the decision.
Both Dick Durbin and Chuck Schumer have hinted that maybe they would be, if Democrats win control of the Senate, they would be open to restoring the filibuster. If they do you think, will you go along with it? And would you be somebody that says, okay, if you restore it, I'm going to be part of the team that says don't get rid of it if Republicans get it back?
Pretty hypothetical, but remember, in this case, they're the ones that
don't give me the tit for tat. No. Wait, Harry Reid and Mitch McConnell. They don't get to blame each other.
But they did, right?
But they each did it.
They each did it, but
and they each broke the promise.
And who did the nuclear move? It was
Who
Harry.
started obstruction?
Harry Reid.
Okay.
Now, but it
at first
happened.
the earth,
it happened,
and the earth cooled.
we can't take it back. Now, if you say, well, we're going to take it back, and then what happens? It's the very next time that we have an issue like that, and then is it delivered again? You can't put the genie back in the bottle. That's the problem.
Yeah, you know what I'd say? Forget 60, make it 75.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. I actually think it's like, that's what we tell our kids.
We'd be down
you
to
can't-
2-2 real quick on
I
the
know,
Supreme
but
Court.
there's one of those things like you tell your kids, like, oh, you can't figure it out. No, now you're stuck in your room longer.
Yeah.
We got to have something here.
Listen, this is going to be partisan. There's no question about that. This has become partisan. I said it earlier. We really do feel like the Dems have done a search and destroy. Only their search didn't work. But that's what they're.
A lot of Democrats sit there and will say one word to you, Garland.
Yeah.
And there's raw feelings on that.
And I met with him.
You were one of the few.
I met with him because what I told him was, look, President Obama had a constitutional obligation to present someone. If Mr. Garland would not have allowed his name to be put in, President Obama could not have fulfilled his obligation. And so I thanked him. I said, look, and you knew before that you were not going to get a hearing, but you allowed yourself to be put in nomination. I appreciate that. He was a fine gentleman. Yeah. He was a nice man.
But you didn't do advice and consent.
No, but that's not my choice to put him on the calendar either. We elect someone, and then they make that decision. Now we sat with this individual, and look, the Dems have made it very clear they weren't going to vote for him to begin with. We knew that we had to do this with Republicans, primarily Republicans only, and if we had enough to pass it, we might get one or two.
What do you think the
additional
unintended
Dems.
consequences are going to be of an entire judiciary over the next generation that's passed with 51-49 votes?
Good question. I wish it wasn't that way. But I don't think that means that we've got bad people on the judiciary.
I think they're good people, but how do we get from, it seems as if, I'd say the biggest beef, do you think there's a difference between being partisan and being ideological? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, no, and they're different, but at the same time, in this particular case, there are some similarities between the two. They're not necessarily mutually exclusive.
Like Neil Gorsuch, I think, was ideological, but he didn't give off an air of partisanship.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But remember, it didn't have to start this way, but it's there today. Fair enough?
Yeah. How do you fix it? Or you're basically giving up?
No, I don't think so. I think both Republicans and Democrats, and look, we talk, we actually, in a lot of cases, we get along pretty well.
I know you do individually. I do know that in the Senate.
And we've talked about this. I mean, we've talked about it in small groups. We've talked about it face-to-face. And the one thing we said was, look, when this is done, regardless of how it comes out, we really do have to find some things that we can work together on to show the nation that there is a healing process that will occur. And remember, during this time in which this very partisan activities happened, very partisan, at the same time, we've just passed an FAA reauthorization bill. This is the longest since like 1982. We passed an opioids bill that's been in the process for 2 years. And we did it in a near unanimous fashion. We just passed appropriations, 75% of the funding the entire government. In a huge bipartisan basis.
I'm not going to make you comment on this.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that your trust issues are at the top, not with the rank and file. I think you just are proving that. Anyway, Senator Rounds, like I said, I'm not going to make you comment. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Sharing your views. Much appreciated. Hello, YouTubers. If you're watching this, it means you've checked out our channel, so thank you. Now do me a favor. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there. Click on any of the videos to watch the latest interviews and highlights from MTP Daily and MSNBC. You can get more Meet the Press content every morning in the First Read newsletter. If you're tired of content that you don't know anything about where it came from, you don't have to have that problem with us. NBC News, MSNBC, MTP, and the Meet the Press mindset right here for you on YouTube. Subscribe now.